Magikarp is the weakest Pokemon of all time. I mean, just look at those stats. Even though they are higher than a whopping 10 Pokemon, it is by far the worst. It only has Splash until level 15 and cannot learn a single TM. But because I'm crazy, I decided to beat Pokemon Violet only using it. Here's how it went. We started the game, named the protagonist Twisted, and chose our starter, Magikarp? Well, since I don't have my Switch modded, I had to wait till I could actually catch one, and the first problem arrived. Although you can get Magikarp really early on, you have 2 required battles before, and the challenge was over. Or so I thought, but you can actually lose those fights and proceed through the game, so all I did was use Leer and never attack to secure the loss. After arriving at the beach, we found our godlike Pokemon Magikarp, and the real challenge began. Unlike previous entries, there are no required battles around the map, but there was another Nemona fight coming up, and looking at my team, there was just no way I could beat her without tackle. So I went to grind. In order for me to deal actual damage, I had to use Splash 40 times against a Magikarp to get rid of my power points to finally use Struggle. The problem was, since Struggle has recoil, and since I couldn't use the Pokemon Center because I didn't want to restore my power points, I had to use potions instead to heal. The thing is, this game introduced the auto battle, but because even a splashing Magikarp would be able to win fights, I actually decided not to use it. Luckily for me, between the rare candies that I found around the map, the useless TMs and items I was able to sell to buy more potions, and all the trainers I defeated, I was just barely able to get to level 15 and finally learn Tackle. And so, Nemona is finally upon us. Even with Tackle, this was going to be a tough fight, but somehow I knew I would win. With our new acquired move and a couple of potions, I made quick work of Sprigatito, and there was only Pommy left. Please don't do half. Please don't do more than half. Please. Can I lose this fight? No. Yeah, apparently this game loves to hold my hand. And with another loss under our belt, we proceeded once again. Inside Mesagoza, we saved Penny, defeated 2 Team Star Grunts, and got one of the most important items in this challenge. Although currently useless. After 20 minutes of plot, and with Murad on our side, the whole world was finally open to us. We now had 18 badges to collect. I decided to tackle them in order from lowest to highest level, and set out to the Bug Gym. On the way, while fighting a couple of trainers, I discovered the best thing in this challenge. Terror Raid fights. They gave me candies to level up fast, and they gave me tons of items that would sell for a lot. Since there's no daycare in Gen 9 to speed up the grinding process, this was the second best thing, and would end up saving hours in the end. And since the raids scale depending on the acquired badges, I would never get to overlevel with the early ones. It was a perfect balance. You know, because a level 100 Magikarp early on would be no fun for this challenge. So after a couple of raids, Magikarp learned its last move, Flail. Flail is a really interesting move. The less HP you have, the more damage it will do. It was instrumental on this challenge. And our Magikarp was now level 25 and ready to take on Katie. Since I had 3 X attacks that I found, I decided to use them and learn something that would change this challenge forever. In earlier generations, X items would give you a +1 on a certain stat for a maximum of 6. That means you would need to waste 6 turns per stat on each battle. In this game, however, they erase it by 2 stages, meaning you only need 3 turns to max out a certain stat. That blew my mind. Unlike the match, it was a walk in a park, and we secured our first badge. The second badge was a Titan Cloth, so because I had a disadvantage, we got a couple more levels on the way and tried to beat it. Even though I was level 31, Cloth resisted all of my moves, and its Rock Smash lowered my defense, so after a while, I lost. I decided to postpone this badge for now and headed to the next gym. After passing the awesome Sunflora test, it was time to challenge Brassius, the Grass Gym leader, and I got destroyed. Petalil had Mega Drain, and although that didn't do too much damage, he healed it to full HP, and the battle was over. I decided to get a couple more levels and challenge Brassius once more. Even though we were level 43 now, Petalil was still a huge problem because of Mega Drain, so I came up with a new strategy. Mega Drain has 15 power points, so I stalled all of their power points with some potions, and was finally able to take it down. With some nicely timed flail for near max damage, and some luck, the second badge was ours. I knew X items were going to be very important for this challenge, and I actually didn't know when they unlocked, so I went back to Mesagoza, and I was finally able to purchase them. The challenge just got a lot more exciting. I only bought X attack, defense, and special defense since I had no special moves, and speed and accuracy weren't as important as an attacking turn. And with that, I decided to rematch Cloth. I set up with 3 X attacks and destroyed the Titan in 4 turns. Together with Arven, we quickly disposed of his second phase and got badge number 3. We were on a roll. I decided to go straight to the next badge, the Bird Titan. I didn't even need to set up for this guy. A couple of tackles were enough to take care of it. The second phase was a little bit harder because of Torment, but I did it. That was 4 badges in 9 hours. Things were starting to speed up thanks to the X items. However, a new challenge was upon us. I knew this was going to be a problem since I started this run, and it was the Team Star bases. When you challenge these bases, you need a team of 3, so it was impossible to just use 1 Magikarp. So I decided to use 3. Even if my Arceus was at the top, the Pokemon cycled between them when sent out, so it was pretty much impossible to just use 1. But since you get infinite heals and my main Magikarp could defeat anyone, that was good enough for me. After defeating 30 Pokemon, it was time to fight the leader, Giancomo. I give up. So as always, I set up 3 X attacks and went to down on his Pokemon. Oh my god, he's not Steel. I thought it was Steel for some reason. So after that misplay, I decided to get just a few more levels, went for the same strategy, and with a massive flail, I beat Giancomo. Things were going pretty well, but while setting up for Leventia and our next batch, I realized it was an electric type gym, one of my weaknesses. I was terrified. But something even more terrifying was waiting for me there. Nemona. This was the 3rd Nemona fight, and the one trainer I still hadn't been able to defeat, but I wanted to change that. I started my usual X attack strategy, 2-shot Rockruff, 1-shot Palmy, and only Florigato was missing. Please kill it! Oh, please don't be a high to low roll. Oh, it totally was! No! 3 battles, 3 losses. Even though once again you don't have to win the fight, my spirit was broken. I passed the test with ease, went back to Mexico to buy a muscle band to increase my physical moves, and challenged the dreaded electric type gym leader, Iono. For the first time, I decided to max out my physical defense on top of my attack, and the first 3 Pokemon went down easily. However, Miss Mages was a different story. Before fainting, Luxio was able to paralyze me, and that was a major problem, because Miss Mages had X. I don't even think I can win this now, because it's gonna do way too much damage. Oh my god, it just... Hex is a 50 power ghost type move, which is nothing crazy, but when the opponent has been inflicted with the status move, it doubles to 100. I did not know this, so I learned it the hard way. With this new knowledge, I retried the fight, and after a very lucky kill with Flail... Let's go! Screw you, Miss Major! Screw you, Yono! I don't even like you! Get out of here! I got the 6th badge. A third of the way there. It was time for another Team Star base, so I grabbed my 2 not so powerful fish and wreaked some havoc until Mela herself came out to play. Being a fire type trainer, I was overconfident for this fight, and Mela's Starkle used Clear Smog, which removes all stat changes and made all my X items completely useless. Well, at least for a couple of turns. All I had to do was stall off its power points and set up with X attacks afterwards. With some healing in between, the fight was won. Badge number 7 was ours. We had a big Titan next, so I grabbed a few more levels before attempting it. Then, we set out to the desert to fight Titan or Thworm. Rap was a little bit annoying, but as they say, same strategy, same result. Oh, please don't kill, don't kill. Oh! What? How did that kill? Oh, come on! After my miscalculation, I tried it again, and actually succeeded this time. The second phase was a little bit more tricky. I had to start with X defense so he wouldn't do too much damage to me, but after a couple of turns attacking and Arven's Toad Skull dealing some good damage, we finally beat the Titan. 10 more to go. The water gym was our next destination, so we grabbed a few more levels and went to Cascarafa. We then saved the day by bringing Kofu his wallet, won an auction just by pressing A bunch of times, and it was time to fight the gym leader. With a type resistance and a bunch of X items, I was able to easily beat Kofu, and was awarded the 9th badge. Our journey was halfway over. The next challenge was the Poison Team Star base, so I brought the 3 Magikarps again, and even before entering it, this kid rocked my world. Bruh. After destroying the kid, and whooping some Team Star's Pokemon's butt, it was time for Atticus. This was the first major block on my path. It started out with Skuntank, who knew Toxic and Venoshock. I knew I couldn't survive a Venoshock after a Toxic, so setting up like normal was just out of the question. So I had to strategize a lot here. I started setting up my defenses while healing periodically and get rid of the poison, and at the same time I was stalling that Toxic power point so that I could set up more easily. After a couple of turns, I was finally able to defeat one of their Pokemon. But that was only the beginning. Muk was next. No matter how bad things seemed, I was able to barely survive Muk's attack and defeated it with an overpowered flail. My excitement was shortly lived though. Oh no! And again. Oh, but if he crits, I'm dead. Speaking of crits, this would be a good time to explain them. Throughout this challenge, I will set up both my physical and special defense to +6, depending on who I'm fighting. But the bad thing about it is, if a Pokemon lands a critical hit, he bypasses all those buffs, so it's like I never used any X items, and throughout this run, this will be a major problem. I decided to get a couple more levels before challenging Atticus again, and then tried my luck. So after setting up my attack and both my defenses, I was finally able to defeat third Pokemon, and there was only one left. After a really hard fight with tons of healing and close calls, I'm gonna die because of the poison! Please poison them, kill me, please! 1 HP! I finally beat Atticus. There was also something else that I didn't realize this fight, but would soon come to be a problem on the next Team Star base. But for now, after a lot of pain, we got our 10th badge. I had no clue yet, but by winning the next badge, everything would change on this challenge. So, without knowing that, we set out to Medali to beat yet another gym. Upon arriving and passing the test just by memory alone, it was time to challenge Larry. I was able to set up my usual stuff against Komala, and this entire fight was a complete joke. I was always at the mercy of a critical hit, but Lady Luck was on my side, and the badge was mine. And this is where everything would change. Like I said earlier in this video, although useless then, the Terra Orb will become one of the most important items in this challenge. When you use a Terra Orb on a particular Pokemon, its main type will change depending on which Terra type it is. But unless it's a special overworld or a Terra Raid Pokemon, they will always have the same typing. For example, my Magikarp is a water type, so my Terra type was also water. Even though defensively nothing changes because I'm still a water type, if I terrestrialize into a water type, my water moves would do 2 times damage instead of the usual 1.5. But because Magikarp has no water moves, it was useless up to this point. However, after beating Larry, you unlock something very special. You can now change the Terra type of any Pokemon. The thing is, it costs 50 Terra Shards from that particular type. Luckily for us, they give us 50 normal Terra Shards for beating Larry. And Magikarp had now the ability to change into a normal type. I just didn't know how important that was yet. Not only would Tackle and Flail do more damage, we would also change our electric and grass weaknesses when facing Pokemon for those types. It was amazing. However, before even being able to do that, yet another Nemona fight was upon us. And this time, I would not let it end in loss again. So after setting up my awesome Magikarp to max, I proceeded to beat one Pokemon after the other. However, that was not the end of the story. Are you serious? And with that one-shot critical, the curse continued. After 4 fights, I still wasn't able to beat Nemona, and the game carried on. Since the beginning, I've always been afraid of ghost Pokemon. Well, not because I'm scared of anything, but because the only way I could beat them was by struggling. And the next badge was Rhyme, the ghost gym leader. I didn't feel ready at all, but decided to try it out to see what would happen. I had a pretty good strategy since in this game you can just forget and relearn moves at will. So I forgot all the high power point moves on Magikarp and was only left with Flail. I then proceeded to get rid of all my power points and headed to the concert area to complete the test. Also, I had to get another Magikarp from the PC because it was a series of forced double battles, but that wasn't even the worst part. I simply did not stand a chance against 2 Pokemon at once, so I decided to grind a bit more for this. After getting up to level 66, it was time for a second attempt. I was actually able to defeat the first Pokemon, but was no match for a combination of attacks and curse. I was completely lost at this point, so I went to the store to check any good held items that would help me, and boy did I find it. If I were to pick the best held item for this entire challenge, I would definitely say the Rocky Helmet. When equipped with it, anytime a Pokemon did an attack that made direct contact, they would lose HP. For a challenge where I waste a lot of turns setting up, this would be absolutely amazing. I would set up and meanwhile do damage at the same time. It was brilliant. The time had come to try my new strategy out, and it was only then that I realized just how broken it was. I started setting up my defense while Greavard and Shuppet died to Rocky Helmet damage. It was a dream. That was soon to become a nightmare because the next trainer had moves with no contact, and the battle was quickly over. I also forgot to mention that I needed to win 3 fights in a row to pass the test. They also heal you between fights, so even struggle strategy was completely useless. While grinding a bit more, I decided to save this gym for last and went to claim my next badge, the Iron Threads Titan. Once again, the Rocky Helmet strategy proved to be absolutely demolishing, and while boosting our defenses, we beat the 2 phases without much effort. 12 badges done, 6 more to go. As always, I grabbed a few more levels between badges and then set out inside inside Alfornada to challenge the next gym. After a crazy moment of relaxation for both me and my Magikarp, we easily passed the test. Oh, I think I'm dead. Psychic? I think I'm dead. Oh! Well, at least we got to see Dendra again. We fairly easily passed the test, and it was time for the gym leader, Tulip. I actually decided to try something new on this fight called the Dire Hit, which improves the rate of critical hits, and well... got 3 crits in 4 attacks. It was a new addition to my setups from now on, and with that, batch 13 was ours. We went straight away for the next batch, which also happened to be a gym, but on our way to Glaciato gym, our worst nightmare was upon us once again, Nemona. I was more experienced and more prepared than ever. I could terrestrialize into normal types, I could set up all the way in every stat that mattered, I had the Dire Hit ready on hand. This fight was impossible to lose. We continue! We continue! I had no more words for this. The curse continued on, and with a heavy heart, we continued heading to the most fun test in the entire game. After some relaxing time in the snow, it was finally time to fight Grusha. Even though I love the Rocky Helmet strategy, the recent Pokemon we had been facing had pretty much no contact moves. Either way, we applied the same old strategy, and even a Water-type Altaria was no match for a confused Magikarp. That was 14 badges done, only 3 more to go, and the dreaded Ghost Gym. It was now time for yet another Team Star base, and after getting our asses kicked by an old man almost twice, our worst nightmare happened. And no, not the base itself, but the leader, Ortega. Remember when I said that the last Team Star fight had something I didn't quite realize? Well, this time I did, but we'll get to that. I started off the fight against Azumarill and quickly realized that he had Charm, so it would be a waste to set up with X attacks. The fight, however, didn't take too long to end. I wasn't about to get discouraged by a simple crit, so I equipped my Magikarp with Rocky Helmet, and this time it was for the win. Azumarill went down fairly quickly from Rocky Helmet damage while I was setting up, and since the next Pokemon also had Charm, X attacks were completely useless, so all I did was heal while he died to Rocky Helmet damage, and that was it. Dashman suffered the same fate, and I was now against the main boss Pokemon. The Starmobile had 2 contact moves, but he barely used them. You wanna know the most messed up thing though? For the longest time, I was trying to stall all of Magic Torque's power points, so we then used the other 2 moves that would actually make contact with us, so that the Rocky Helmet would defeat the Pokemon and actually let us proceed. However, that was not the case. This boss Pokemon have infinite power points. Yeah, they went there, and it will be even worse on the last Team Star base. However, I had a new strategy for this next attempt. There are items called Guard Spec. I had never used one in my 25 years of playing Pokemon, but this challenge pushed me to my limits. It prevents any stat from being dropped for 5 turns, so all I had to do was use 1 every 5 turns to secure my attack stat all the way to the last Pokemon, and it actually worked pretty good. However, I was still at the mercy of a critical. Even with the critical and that BS mechanic, all I did was try one more time, getting hit by no crits to finally win against Ortega. Our sweat and tears finally paid off, and batch 15 was ours. I set out to challenge the last of the Titans, Dondozo, and well, I did terrestrialize and got rid of my water resistance, so... But then my brain woke up, and together with the Rocky Helmet, we obliterated the Titan. Phase 2 was pretty much the same, but I actually had to try against Tatsugiri, like setting up and stuff. And as always, we ended up getting batch 16. Only Raime and Neri were left. And let me tell you, they were both absolutely ridiculous to take down. We grabbed the 3 Magikarps, defeated 30 Pokemon, and challenged Eri. This was a nightmare. Eri sent out Toxicroak, and although annoying because of poison, we still applied the same strategy and Rocky Helmet did the job. I continued setting up against Passimian, and once again, MVP Rocky Helmet was just on a roll. But this was just the beginning. The next Pokemon was Annihilate, a ghost type. I couldn't touch this guy. Well, not directly, but his moves did make contact. The problem was, as always, one critical even at max HP would kill me. And it did. Next try, Ashley was able to defeat it, but Lucario was next, with not a single contact move whatsoever, and the ability to kill me with a critical. But between healing and attacking, Lucario went down. There was only one Pokemon left, and this was the worst one. Starmobile, on top of having infinite power points, it has combat torque with paralysis chance. It has shift gear with boost speed and attack. And the ability Stamina, which boosts defense every time I attack it. Oh, you thought that was bad? Oh no, there's more. It has only one contact move, and he rarely uses it. And a critical, I'm dead. So I had to be extremely lucky not to get hit by any criticals, and well, it didn't work out too well. After a few attempts, I decided to grind a bit more and then challenge Terry one last time. And then... Is that a sliver of health? I can't even see it! We finally got lucky enough to beat Eri. And the badge was ours. Only one more to go. While brainstorming ways of beating the ghost test, there was something that I completely forgot about. The thing is, normal moves cannot hit ghost types, but it's also true the other way around. I couldn't believe I forgot something so simple, yet so important. And so, I stocked on potions and tried the test one last time. Even though Curse could still hit me, I was completely immune to ghost type moves, and even though they had other moves, I was finally able to beat the second trainer, after much healing and stalling. It was time for the last fight, and I was pumped. However, something very interesting happened. Guys, this guy's an idiot! That sure helped me a lot. After a long stalling battle, we defeated the last trainer and passed the test. It was finally over. Only Rhyme stood in our way. Our entire strategy stayed the same, and so I decided to give it a try. I was able to set up all the way while receiving very minimal damage, and with Rocky Helmet working its magic, I defeated Mimikyu in a heartbeat. Houndstone followed the same fate, and we were down to the last two Pokemon. Toxtricity would have been a huge problem if I was still a water type, but that was not the case anymore. That was still a great problem. Any critical hit would destroy me, and I had to keep that in mind. Funnily enough, Toxtricity defeated Bayonet with a discharge, and it was now 1v1, and the end was near. We may still lose this. He can still crit me, so... I want to get rid of the paralysis though. How many... Well, for me at least, because I totally called it. I now knew I could win this, but had to survive 15 discharges without crits. So I tried again. And again. And I had the same outcome. I knew I could win this fight with some luck, but since I would need to be at level 100 for the remaining of the game, I decided to grind, and our Magikarp was now level 100. Also, it had now surpassed Arceus itself, so it actually needed a new nickname. It was time to finish the last badge, once and for all. And this time, Lady Luck was with us the whole time, as we saw Toxtricity go down from its own struggle. We now had all 18 badges, and only hard fights from here on out. We decided to tackle the Elite Four first and become the champions of Paldea, but I knew that wouldn't be easy. I stocked up on a bunch of potions, our awesome Rocky Helmet, and set out to challenge the greatest trainers of Paldea. First up was Rika, a ground type trainer. Wish Cache was a bit annoying since I was trying to set up my defenses and it kept loading them with Earth Power. However, I just stalled its power points, set up all the way including a dire hit, and went to town. And with some critical hits, we defeated everything on our path. Next up was Poppy, Steel type trainer, which was a problem for my normal type moves. Or so I thought. Apart from the Magnezone with Discharge that had me on the fence for a critical hit, everything else went down with a combination of Rocky Helmet and Tackle. And Elite member number 2 was defeated. At this point, my confidence was sky high. I had no trouble defeating anyone yet, but we were still halfway through the Elite Four. Larry was next, and Tropius was a problem. Paired up with a combination of Sunny Day and Solar Beam, they wiped the floor with me, and my confidence was completely shattered. Luckily for me, all I had to do was set up my defenses while stalling the Solar Beam power points and healing to finally beat Tropius. Dire hits started working like a charm, and the Pokemon started going down, one after the other. Oh my god, this guy crits, I'm dead. Of course it did. Well, I had that coming. I now knew what I had to do and did it to a T to secure the win against Larry. Only one more to go, and he was the scariest one. At this point, I had to be very strategic about terrestrializing my Magikarp because there were a lot of Pokemon that had fighting moves but no grass or electric, so I had to choose what to do. But now, all it mattered was this one fight against Hassel, the Dragon-type Elite Four member. Not everyone was easy enough, since I could actually set up while he received damage from the Rocky Helmet, and the rest of the team suffered pretty much the same fate. Well, we knew this was gonna happen. Even though Leech Seed removed most of my Rocky Helmet damage, we won nonetheless, without much of a problem, and only the champion remained. I thought I was ready, but nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what was coming. We were now face to face against Gira and her lead Pokemon, Espathra. This Pokemon was the single most difficult Pokemon to beat in this entire challenge. Why? Its move Lumina Crash did over half of my HP and dropped special defense by 2 stages. And also, its ability Opportunist made it every time I boosted my stats, she would do the same. It was ridiculous. The only way out was for me to stall 10 turns of Lumina Crash, but even that was a problem. I couldn't just heal the damage it dealt since it dropped my special defense by 2 stages and would kill me next turn, even at full HP. So, after losing about 7 times, I finally got the break I needed. I started the fight with X special defense, since it would just get dropped to neutral after Lumina Crash. Then I used Guard Spec to keep it from lowering my stats. However, on the last turn it could possibly use to defeat me. You're an idiot! Oh my god! You're a freaking idiot, we just got this. And with that, I knew I just won. I finished setting up on Espathra, and afterwards, all the Pokemon went down. One after the other. Only Glimmora was left. And then... we did it! Let's freaking go! It was done. We had just become the new champions. Although this battle was hard fought, I already had my eyes set on the real deal. I wanted to break the curse. And this was my last chance to beat Nemona. I started the fight the way I always do, X items, Dire Hit, Rocky Helmet, and went to town on this. Until only my Magikarp was left standing. The curse was finally lifted. This was not the end though. We still had plenty of hard fights left, and the second story finale was upon us. The director himself wanted to test us, and so... he was no match for us. It was now time for Penny herself to prove her worth, but once again, not a single evolution was a match for our Lord and Savior. There was only one match left between us and Area Zero, so we headed straight away to fight our friend and rival, Arven. And once again, as I was saying, once again, with the same strategy, didn't stand a chance against us. The only thing left to do was get into Area Zero and discover the truth. We fought Paradox Pokemon alongside our friends that made quick work of them, so after opening the remaining lock and learning the truth about the Professor, there was only one fight left to become the greatest trainer of all of Paldea. I knew this was going to be one of the toughest fights, and it did not disappoint. AI Turo had an exceptional team of 6, and I had a really tough job. Iron Moth was leading the party, and it was a problematic foe. It had Discharge, but since some Pokemon had fighting moves, I had to pick my weaknesses carefully. And the battle was lost in one turn. So, when I retried, I went with a different approach. I terrestrialized on the first turn, but after a while, I was defeated once more. I lost a couple more times, but every time I lost, I gained more insight on the amount of damage I could take. And so, nice. I now knew I couldn't lose again, or this number would have been for naught. I was finally able to fully set up against Iron Moth, while being barely able to survive some hits, but the tables were already starting to turn, because setting up and defeating this Pokemon was all the momentum I needed. Iron Hands, Iron Thorns, Iron Jugglies, Iron Bundle, and even Iron Valiant all fell victim to the almighty Magikarp. And the challenge was over. I beat the entirety of Pokemon Violet only using a Magikarp. Took me 34 hours to do it. But it was a really fun challenge. If you enjoyed the video in any capacity, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. I stream every single weekday, 10 AM Eastern. Peace out, guys.